Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with the Skull Man and the human healer known as Bill McRight. Enjoy.
Bill, 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 Bill. Bill McRight. Bill, 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 McRight. Bill McRight. Bill McRight.
Yo.
Hey,
What's up, dude?
not much, man. How you doing?
I'm good. How you been?
Pretty good, pretty well.
Yeah, what's happened between now and then? It's been a long time.
It's been over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Crazy. I don't know. I moved to Los Angeles at some point during all of that,
Yeah.
and been here for like that long, almost.
Yeah, and you dig it?
Sometimes. I'm not.
Why did you
like,
end up there? Like, how did you decide to move from Philly to there?
I had like one of my like super good friends from like college and stuff was out here and doing a gallery and like pretty well connected with like kind of like the stuff I was into at the time. And like he just like encouraged me to move out here, and I got a job doing art handling, which is not advisable.
Yes. Do you still pursue the gallery life?
Not really. I mean, I'm working on a show that's going to be in my buddy's gallery that's like private tattoo studio / gallery.
And did you ever go that route with the tattooing? You ever take that path?
Not in any way that like anyone will encourage.
Yeah.
Me and Chris used to like figure out how to build little machines like in the studio and give each other terrible tattoos that got me yelled at by his now wife.
Right.
But,
Yeah, I wonder if you could explain to people, I don't know if you view Space 1026 like this, but the magic that was Space 1026.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I came into that, like, I saw an article in some magazine, like, a long time ago that I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, like, just, like, check that off and, like, I want to check that out one day. And that was, like, when I lived in South Carolina and was just kind of, like, didn't know what I was doing at all.
Right.
Like, early 20s.
You were a printmaker, though, right?
Yeah. And then I like went to grad school in New York and moved to Philly after that because New York is not my vibe.
Right. And then you ended up immediately at Space 1026? It seemed like a natural place for any printmaker to roll through.
It was pretty quick. Like I had been like going to Philly a fair amount and like made some friends within like that community. And when I moved to Philly, yeah, it was maybe a few months into being there that I moved into a studio at 1026.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember it as a pretty unique.
Dude, it is magic. Like,
Yeah.
It was like actual, like, kind of, I don't think anybody would have called themselves an anarchist, but it was pretty much like the anarchist collective because it was all like
Sure.
Consensus decision making and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember like It seemed like even like collecting rent was a difficult task, but it got done,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And like, like we did stuff to like make sure that rent got paid, but like everybody would eventually like pony up too.
Yeah. No, I
And
mean,
like,
I definitely miss the golden era, but I could tell it was something very unique and special. And I think I assumed stuff like that was all over the place, especially I moved to Oakland
mhm.
right after Philly. And I think I took for granted how unique that kind of environment was because ultimately I never found another thing similar to it.
Yeah, I can't think of anything like on the same level. Like I think there's like probably some like collectively run studios and some like more like democratic gallery spaces, but I think that had like such a weird combination of it, and like it was kind of like a weird collection of like ragtag crew, you know?
Yeah, but very high quality ragtag, I would say. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I I think I was like also just like love Ben Woodward's stuff from like the first time I saw it, and then like getting to know him, and like he's like the big homie now. Um, but like that dude cuts like ruby lith and stuff like that, and it's like the I feel like space kind of like had a lot of that, like doing like this very like old like craft, or using like sort of bootleg means to get stuff done.
Yeah, it's like what art school should have been, but wasn't, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I had friends who would call it like the honeycomb hideout and stuff like that, and like it was just like so many people with like different backgrounds, but a common interest in print a lot, and then also just like some weird ideas or whatever.
Yeah. So like do you miss that at all? That era?
I miss that era. And I mean, like, I think I miss Philly and like some people that are still there to some degree, but um, I also don't know if I was there and it was still the same people that were there, that at this point I would have the energy to like interact with that many people on a daily like basis.
Right, it's pretty wild in there. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was. And then like I feel like also there would be times when there would be nobody there and it was just this giant space that was cold.
Yeah, I mean a lot of it's about the space. That architecture was just crazy. That building was insane at so
Did
many
you ever
levels.
go in the vault?
Yeah, I think Alex Lucas showed me that one day.
That
It
was
was gnarly.
insane. Yeah.
You know what's funny is like we're talking about it like Space 1026 doesn't exist, but I'm pretty sure it does, but not in the same place.
Yeah, it does in a different building. And I believe that they own the building that they're in now, which is amazing. Like, I think that's really cool that they were able to find a space and like have it be like the space's space.
For sure.
And it looks really cool. Like it looks like it's multi levels and like they have a garden and stuff, I think.
Yeah. All right, so let's like that's kind of the pivot point because that's where I met you. But
yeah.
Are you from? Would you say South Carolina?
No, I grew up like right outside of Atlanta through like the end of elementary school, and then my family moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, and I like went like to the rest of like required school, finished high school, and like I went to Savannah College of Art and Design for a minute.
SCAD.
But yeah, I like quickly like in the first quarter realized that it was not what I needed to be doing at the time, and I went back and like cooked pizza and delivered it sometimes, and ran a record store with friends that had started it, and like played in some bands and stuff. And then moved to South Carolina to go to like a liberal arts college, kind of just on a whim.
And was this an obvious, like from a young age, or was this a skateboard entry into art, or from a young age were you drawn?
Oh, my mom has drawings that like I couldn't remember doing, but I remember like the first drawing I remember doing was like a crying dinosaur in the first spelling test that I had that I failed like miserably.
Nice.
And that also like I think like it showed me like that there was something there, because like my parents were more interested in the drawing than they were in like the fact that I had done so poorly on the test.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so it's from a young age you were drawn.
Yeah.
Right on.
And yeah, I mean, I think I've always kind of like tended to like a rougher drawing or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember you had me making a prison shank. That's like the first thing I was doing. And
that's awesome. That was funny because it got, I don't know, like people were really excited about that for a while, and I like did the first ones of those like on a whim in graduate school, and just was using like old I think zinc etching plates, and just using like the plate cutter to cut them into blade shapes, and then wrapping a t-shirt handle around them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've always kind of like tended to do that, like, you know, a little, like when you're a little kid you pick up like sticks and pretend that they're swords or guns or whatever. And I think like that stuff tied in because somebody described like the way I make stuff as like figuring out how to do it bootleg all the time.
Right.
Which I think that's fair.
Yeah, the skulls kind of remind me of that. Just like, I don't know how to word it. I guess DIY is the lamest way to word it, but it's just like kind of rougher, more rugged approach.
Yeah. I definitely like taught myself to do the carving of the skulls. So I'm probably making a lot of mistakes that if I would like learn it instead of just teach myself, it might go a lot better, but it I don't know. It's like, I can't call myself a folk artist or like
Sure.
any of that, but that I was exposed to like Howard Finster like at a very early age, and I think that had a lot of impact on it. You know that dude?
No, Howard Finster.
Yeah, he was a like visionary Southern like minister. I don't remember what kind of like
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Christianity.
Yeah, it's cool.
He does like plywood stuff cut out in shapes, and yeah,
It's wild.
yeah, it's pretty like weird. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff just like around where I grew up, and I think it just rubs off on you. I don't know. Like I like the face jug ceramics and stuff that is from like the South.
Right. Did Barry McGee do some shit like that too? Some kind of jug face thing or something? I can't recall.
I think he would like paint onto like bottles and stuff.
Oh, but you're saying an actual jug with a face.
Yeah, they're like ceramic, like kind of like moonshine jugs or whatever, but have like a face made onto them like pretty crudely.
Oh, that's nice.
They're rad.
Yeah, I remember you were drawing a lot of skulls, right? Like just doodling skulls for a while there?
Yeah. Like doodling or like drawing on found paper with different colored ballpoint pen mostly. And yeah, and I guess I like would do a lot of really quick ones that were like Sharpies or like one line kind of drawings.
Is it safe to say like you kind of find the careerism of art boring? Like you're not
Yeah.
interested in like this kind of button down kind of like assembly line production for galleries and whatnot? Seems like you don't like fucking around like
No.
that.
No,
Have you
I
tried?
think,
Was there ever a phase where you even entertained that?
yeah, I mean, I've like done shows in like galleries and been in like kind of bigger name like commercial galleries, like in group shows and stuff. But it doesn't appeal to me. Like I like have quit drinking since going to a lot of art events.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I was like a lot of that was because I get like really bad like anxiety, and being around people is not like large groups and stuff, just not my jam really.
Right. Understandable.
So, and yeah, I think there's like the business aspect of art, like I'm not like that stoked on.
Sure. So
Like,
are you still art handling in the no?
That ended, and I'm fine with it.
So how do you? I see you do. I don't know if I pronounced this word right. Reiki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
Is that your job in a sense?
I do that, and I've been actually having more success selling these carvings
Nice.
than I ever did selling like prints or one of a kind art pieces. So like that's supplementing some stuff.
How did this Reiki thing happen?
Kind of like towards the end of my art handling career, I just got interested I went to see like someone who does like Reiki and like readings and like healing work and stuff like that. And it got like, she gives you like homework to do basically. And I was like, I've always dealt with depression, and I was in like not a great place at the time when I went to do that, and it helped like shift some stuff for me. And I mean, I was going to therapy and shit too, and like being medicated, but like I don't know, I think it just like taught me more compassion and stuff like that, really.
Was it difficult? Did you have like the Philly bullshit alarm going off initially when it came to that? Or were you open to that kind of stuff pretty quick? Because I feel like there can be an East Coast skepticism.
I grew up with like Presbyterian ministers for parents.
Really?
So like I like got, I don't know, I've lost my religion or whatever in my like early teens when my parents were getting divorced, and I was just kind of like calling bullshit on everything. And I mean, honestly, I was probably like in my late 30s, early 40s when I got exposed to like the Reiki stuff. And I had like friends who were much more spiritual than I. And they just seemed to have like calm or something about them that I kind of like was like, there has to be something to this.
Right.
And I mean, I think a lot of it's like breathing and learning how to relax and stuff like that, honestly. But there is like something magic to like call on higher powers, whether they're real or just like a thing that brings you kind of like a boost of power for yourself, I guess.
And so, like, you said Presbyterian.
Yeah.
So, were you always drawing such dark imagery, and were they confused by that? Because it sounds like they were supportive at the same time.
I mean, they were supportive. Like, my dad was super supportive. I think my mom wanted me to draw nicer stuff, probably, but she did like always support me, like as far as like pursuing art. I think she would have preferred if I pursued graphic design, because somehow she thinks that that's a more successful business. But it was, I don't know, it was funny because my parents like were not about to let me wear like shirts with bad words on them or anything like that.
Of course.
And then I think they kind of just didn't know what to do with whatever art I was making. Like, they could see that it was like took like some skill and talent, but also were just like, oh, it's weird monsters and things.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural coming out of a Christian upbringing.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I was at.
I mean, when I was like in like middle school or high school, I was drawing like devils and shit in the Sunday school books.
Right.
And like people would tell me, like, when a guest came and got my book, like you could tell by their face of like revolt at the stuff that I had drawn in there.
Yeah, it's just an aesthetically appealing thing to a young boy.
Yeah.
It's just a logical place to end up. But also, like, it seems like a current through all your work with the death focus, with the skulls and the, there's like a weird, it's not really like heavy work, there's a kind of humor to it, at least in my eyes, but it's also like dark subject matter on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I think the like meaning of skulls have changed a lot to me, especially in like the past, say, 5-6 years. Like, it's become more of like a thing you like used to recognize ancestors and stuff like that. And like I think there is like maybe some dark humor to it. And like I've written down several times "memento moron," like
sure,
the Latin phrase, except just remember you're stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't think it's like even that dark at all, but of course not.
Yeah. I mean, it's something about, like, even your early work with the woodcuts.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like they're kind of harmless. I don't know what to call them. Demon dudes. They never struck me as truly disturbed images.
Yeah. No, I think I more made like kind of like protectors of like myself or whatever. Like, if I can fill the world with like these tough images, like, then nobody will fuck with me because they think I'm that tough. I don't know.
Do you still do the woodblock carving?
I had like a good burst of it during like the early days of the pandemic, and I was doing more like almost like political cartoons of stuff about like our neighborhood, which is like fighting gentrification and like developers and stuff like that.
What neighborhood is that?
It's Lincoln Heights. It's like the first Los Angeles neighborhood
ever.
Yeah, it was originally called East LA, but like the the Zoot Suit riots.
I certainly know the song, but I
so the song is about there's a gang in the neighborhood called Clover.
Okay. Or
like Clover Street, and they were the like Zoot Suit rioters, and there's a like, I don't think it's a naval academy anymore, but there used to be a naval academy close by, and the soldiers were trying to come like over the bridge into the neighborhood to like beat up locals, and the locals like fought off the sailors or whatever. And then when all the guys got arrested, their girlfriends started beating up the sailers.
Nice. I gotta look into that. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the song again. I don't even know who that's
Right.
by.
Yeah. I can't remember shit.
I want to say Real Big Fish, but I really don't think it's Real Big Fish.
I think it's like Cherry Poppin' Daddies or something.
Cherry Poppin' Daddies? You're completely right. That's an amazing name. It's a great name.
I'm maybe a little embarrassed that I knew that specifically, but
so that's that neighborhood where that occurred.
Yeah, and like I don't know. That's the funny thing about Los Angeles is like I did not really know much history when I moved here.
Of course.
And it was cool because I like a while after being here, I would like be watching movies and be like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And like I think that got me like more interested in finding out like what buildings were and stuff like that. And there's like tons of history in a very short amount of time in this city, you know?
Well, it's very young.
Yeah. And like there were like 3 neighborhoods where Dodger Stadium is now that got destroyed to make Dodger Stadium. And they were more like indigenous folks that were living there. And it's funny, like my mom was talking to me about she and her friend went to see the new Indiana Jones movie. And I guess there's like a scene with a like parade with astronauts when they first came back from the moon.
Uh-huh.
And my mom actually was at that when she was a kid. And she was like, the movie was wrong. They had them in a convertible. That's not right. They were on a truck. And like telling me all the like stuff they had gotten wrong. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, Mom. Like it's a movie and they needed to take creative license probably. And she's like, they could have watched like one video of it. And it was,
what is like, this? What is this Indiana Jones movie called again?
I don't even know. It's the like one that's out right now that is the last one ever, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure they've said that before.
I haven't watched that Crystal Skull one, and I kind of feel like I should.
Oh wow, yeah. Billy Crystal Skulls, so you got to watch that.
Yeah, that was a beautiful name there for the taking. That's like based on a true story, sort of. Like it's based on an actual crystal skull that is like in a collection somewhere.
Well, what do you mean? What does this crystal skull? It just exists, right? Someone made a crystal skull at some point.
Yeah, it's like disputed if it's actually ancient or not, but it was discovered at ruins in like South America. I want to say Mexico, but I'm not totally sure. Or it was discovered by a guy or who was an explorer, or his daughter found it. But then there's some speculation that like a German counterfeiter actually made the skull and sold it as an artifact.
I love that idea.
It's like a really confusing. There's like I've started reading like books about crystal skulls and gotten into some of the history, and I kind of like love that there's like such dispute over some of them.
Yeah, or this idea of like just counterfeiting shit like that in that era. It's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like there was a lot of that because you could get it done really pretty cheap, and like it's not that hard to make something look old.
I mean, back then I don't even know how they were verifying things.
Yeah, they probably had no way. If you threw some mud on it, it was ancient.
Yeah. So what's the process with the skulls? I see you have this little tool.
Yeah,
what is that?
It's like a rotary tool. It's a big
like a Dremel.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has like a much stronger motor and it's just better made. I need to invest in some tabletop saws because my body is not real happy with me using my wrists in the way that I have been.
Right.
But yeah, like I think that's been the toughest part of like learning this stuff is figuring out how to do it. Because I did use a Dremel for like, I don't know, 6 months or something before I broke down and bought a new thing. But like I blew through the Dremel flex shafts. Like I think I went through like 3 or 4 of those.
And so you kind of sketch on the rock that you just find in your general meanderings, and then you just work it up with the tool.
Some of them are found in just general meanderings, and then some of them are I buy at wholesalers. But
Like
yeah,
crystal shops.
yeah, but like where crystal shops go to buy their crystals.
Gotcha.
It's just cheaper that way, to be honest.
All right, so now I'm seeing the and the Reiki. There's some connection there, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Like I actually like when I decided that this was what I wanted to do was like I'm going to tell my wife this and she's going to be like, "Oh great, you've got another fucking idea about how to make something." But she was like, "Oh, that what you're telling me makes total sense. You should definitely do that." Which is like what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But like I do think it definitely makes a lot of sense because I have a pretty like extensive knowledge of crystals and the properties attributed to them at this point. And I mean, like I've done so much with skulls already, and now it's like I don't know. I think the carving them is totally a natural progression, and it feels like the most honest stuff I've ever made, probably, to me.
What do you mean by honest?
Just not like it's not like I do it at all for anybody else. Like I don't think about like who's gonna be a consumer,
Right.
because I think like that's where my head was at like for a long time of like, oh, like make stuff to like make a name for myself, and like I have no interest in that anymore, really.
Now, how old do you now?
45.
So how long do you think it took to make work that felt? No, I think it's pretty normal, but like
Yeah.
I think it's important to point out for people who are just starting that it can take like a decade, it could take 2 decades to get to a place where the work feels honest and you actually like it and you like making it, and it's a very holistic process.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely I think that there's like it is more of like a practice, like it's an art practice, but also a spiritual practice or whatever, and there is like holistic qualities to it, and that's kind of like another thing that excites me about making these is like there are people buying them to like use in their practices, whether it's like meditating with them or like setting up crystal grids and stuff.
Whoa, what's a crystal grid? Oh, is that what you have some images of on your Instagram?
Yeah, like just arrangements of crystals for whatever purposes.
And there's a methodology there, or it's like an aesthetic arrangement?
It's kind of both. I mean, like certain stones will have like different properties assigned to them, and a lot of it has to do with like chakras and stuff. So like the stones will be divided up into like the different colors.
Gotcha.
And then like the colors correspond to chakras.
As you're talking about it, I'm trying to understand how deep you go into all this shit, like the auras, the chakras, Like,
I mean,
are you full in, or do you feel like you're still exploring, or do you feel like you're on the outside of these things, or
no,
what?
I mean, I feel, I think like my hesitancy is like that a lot of people don't understand that stuff and kind of just like write it off very quickly. And like chakras, I feel like that makes sense to me, but I don't always like I don't feel them inside of me all the time or anything. Um, like not consciously.
Yeah.
And but I've always been like super sensitive to other people's energy. Um, so I think there's fucking something to that.
Like
Like,
sensitive in a good and bad way, like
oh
just like
yeah, yeah,
absorbing it.
absorbing it and yeah, like almost like processing it for other people probably.
Hmm.
I've like definitely learned to turn a lot of that off.
Yeah, it's kind of
But
odd.
like
Like you want to be able to control it, I guess. You don't want it to be turned off all the time or on all the time, but it sounds like maybe you were on all the time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think I also just like in whatever like um whatever issues that have come up for me in my life, that like finding this way to like understand a lot of it a little better and feel like I'm taking control of it,
Hmm.
which might be me being a little bit of a hermit, but um
You are you hermetic in general? You just hang out at home?
yeah, pretty much at this point. I mean, I we go out and do activities, but I've given my druthers probably stay at home.
Right. I mean, at 45, you've kind of seen the what hedonism can give you. It's like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
much.
I'm pretty happy to hang out with my cats and my wife. Um, and like from my workspace, I have a little like Home Depot shed that the owners of the property like put drywall up in and stuff. So it's like a little studio to work in. And
Nice.
we've got a garden and like, so it's mostly like hanging out outside almost in the shade.
Oh yeah, I mean, LA can be very, very beautiful.
Yeah, it can also, it's being a little hot right now, which I think
Sure, sure.
kind of a common theme.
New Jersey's same shit right now. Um, but was this stuff like inside of you early on? You know, like when I met you, were you even aware of these kind of crystal, Reiki,
Um,
this kind of thing, or did that come to you in California?
it definitely came to me in California. Like I think like when I was a lot younger, I could see like auras and stuff a little bit and just didn't understand what it was.
What does that mean?
And the
Like
aura,
colors? Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
actually. I actually
yeah.
don't. I don't know that much about this kind of
So
stuff.
yeah, so auras are like the like energy that's around you. It could be like magnetic fields or whatever. There's a way to photograph it that involves like putting your hands on some plates.
Hmm.
That I think those pick it up. I don't really understand how that happens, but yeah, like so sometimes I can see an aura on a person or animal or whatever, just like relaxing my eyes, and it's not like a big like flame coming off the top of their head or anything. It's just like a little color around them that's very faint.
Hmm.
Um, like I would see like figures. I want to guess that they were ghosts or something. Um, but like figures that looked like TV static, but were a bunch of colors.
You saw this when you were young.
Yeah, like playing in the front yard by myself, kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, um, and like I don't know. Like I think I'm pretty skeptical of like a lot of faith stuff. But my dad was like an ordained Presbyterian minister, but like interested in like anybody's faith. And there's like a while when he was going to like Sufi mysticism meetings and when he lived in Nashville.
Huh.
And it was like, I think just like my dad's interest in all of that, like was coming from like this very gentle place.
Yeah.
That I don't see that many people that are like really in their, or like, I don't think that many people are really in their faith of like the tenets of most organized religions. But like, I think that was like what interested my dad, and he would like be like, it's all about God's love. And like, that's a pretty simple like explanation of like things being good, but like, I think like having love in your life is usually like a positive thing, and like whatever comforts you, that's cool.
Yeah, I think what I see, the issue I see is kind of like weaponized answers where, and this is beyond religion to me, it's all sorts of things, but like, there's a lot of esoteric Christianity that emphasizes the deep mystery of life. And
right.
I think somewhere probably at the beginning of industrialization, like that kind of mystery was becoming just eradicated. Like that spirit was just slowly being crushed by a kind of mechanical, way of thinking and approaching things. So the answer outweighed the question there. And that's for art, that's a problem too. I find a lot of art now is like, it's like trying to tell me an answer or a way to think, or it's kind of this like one-to-one interaction where I'm much more interested in like divergent art where it's like even the skulls are just intrinsically interesting. And I think when you're younger, people shy away from like some of the easier images because they want to prove something, which I think is fine.
Yeah,
but
totally.
When you refine yourself over decades, I think you can reapproach fundamental images like the skull, and you can unearth like a deep fundamental complexity, because each skull is quite different. They all have character, I think. They're very attractive.
I think that is something that also appealed to me about like a lot of the learning about the crystals and like and magic stuff, honestly. Like it is kind of chasing that mystery without answers, really, or like you're trying to find answers to like existence or whatever, or just, I mean, I think a lot of what we forget is like basic life stuff, like being happy and appreciating what we have.
Sure, yeah, gratitude is sounds cheesy, and it's actually like maybe you went through this process as well. Almost aesthetically, you resist truths that aren't that cool sounding, but like gratitude, like when you're younger, but gratitude is such a simple concept and dramatically changes. It can change your entire life, I think.
Oh yeah.
But it sounds so lame that I think artists sometimes they get caught up in like the coolest, sexiest ideas that are often wrong.
Yeah, I think like what doesn't interest me about a lot of the art world or whatever. I mean, like I don't want to like call people's names out or anything like that, but
sure,
I think there's like such, and this is like I think a product of capitalism. Like there's such an emphasis on like building your brand and your like style and making this thing that is like becomes formulaic, and like I don't know where the fucking fun in that is. Like I can do like paintings of the same thing for a while, or like
sure
make but like I don't know, I just don't I feel like the imagery that I'm messing with doesn't have like a gimmick to it, and maybe that it does really because it's such a universal thing for humans. Like,
Oh, I don't think that's not a gimmick. It's just a fundamental archetype or symbol. I think there's a distinction.
yeah,
And I would agree that in life you get paid to simplify yourself enough that others can understand your role within a system. And so that's the trade-off almost always.
yeah,
If investors want a non-volatile investment, so if you make paintings that look different 2
right,
years ago, and then it keeps changing, they're going to be like, I invested in this insane essentially company that I don't even know what it's doing anymore. So uh, I think the true path for me, at least, is like there's paths to maturity that are simplifying your
yeah,
persona, but they're not in the service of, oh, let me place you within this cog-like system that gives you a certain predictability for me to exploit.
yeah. I think a lot of the stuff that is like commercially viable and successful is these monuments to like modern like mediocrity,
Sure.
like middle class luxury that is like just a like superficial comfort of some sort. And
Well, but
like,
but at the same time, it seems like you found a market, quote unquote, for the skulls, but it's more organically emerging, and it's probably not art investors. It's probably people who are more directly connected to the thing and to you, at least in what you're interested in, right?
yeah, I mean, it's of what I know, there's like a much smaller pool of people that are carving crystal skulls than most stuff. Like I've been able to like find a handful of other people that are like constantly making skulls, and I think there's something about that that's like refreshing to me that it's just not as like there's also skulls that are fucking put into like a water jet thing or something and that cut
Yeah,
them
yeah,
to,
yeah.
like, and you know they're cool, they don't feel like alive in the same way to me.
Of course. I'm kind of curious. Do those people come at it from an art background like you, or are they coming at it from a crystal angle?
I think it's more from the like crystal and like healing or spiritual world. But like I also like can see a little bit of this sort of like art collector. It's like that mentality of collecting, but it's almost more wholesome because like it is being tied into like empowering yourself or making yourself feel some.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if they're putting it in these grids, I think you called it,
Yeah,
there's this life beyond. A lot of art just dies once it's finished, and then it's
yeah,
it's put in a casket when it's bought by the investor, and it just
right.
moves around. But that at least the lifespan of the thing continues beyond that moment in which you claim it's finished.
Yeah, I think that's what's attractive to me about this specific work too. And like I think with the like making the shanks and stuff, that was there too, because there was like I think those were almost more of like a fetishization of this like almost survival mentality of just like finding whatever and making a weapon out of it. And I feel like this is just like kind of a matured thing, but like to me, it's always most exciting when you're making it. And then like, I like the fact that somebody's handling it and not, even if it does mostly sit on the shelf, but like somebody takes it off once in a while and looks at it.
Right.
That's cool to me. And like I think that's the like sterility of museums has never been my favorite thing.
Oh, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Do you see where the trajectory goes beyond the skulls? Like, do you want to make big ass skulls, or do you like the intimacy of the kind of palm-sized skull? Is there like an ambition that you see beyond it?
I think I would like to do larger stuff.
Just a huge ass skull.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty rad.
That would be cool. Yeah.
There's a father and son that are both carvers in Brazil, and the father has been carving for like 40 years or something like that. And I'm very like stoked on both of their work. And there's a part of me that wants to go like, you guys are masters. Can I hang out with you for a while?
Yeah. What are they called? Can they be found online?
Yeah. The father is named Leandro de Souza, and his son is Igor.
Nice.
I mean, they're like definitely on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, I got to check that out. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Like a mentorship.
Yeah, and I think there's like something that appeals like that to me in a lot of the kind of like art making that I've done too, is the like craft aspect of it. And I think the whole like master printer when you go to grad school is kind of a fucking silly idea, because unless you go to somewhere that's very technical and you're really good at that aspect of printing, I don't know that like a master's degree makes a master in any way.
Oh no.
But
well,
like,
these skulls are wild. They're very alien.
Those guys have minds of their own, and yeah,
That creeps me out.
Yeah, they're pretty wild.
The hell? Do you have this? Like, do you ever develop narratives around the skulls, names, etc.?
I don't. I mean, there are people that like sell skulls that will like name them before they go to a collector or skull guardian or whatever. I kind of like feel like it's the user's responsibility to find out the name of their skull.
So you don't really develop an attachment.
I honestly, like, if I think that's something I've struggled with in the past, of like becoming very attached to stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I have so many fucking crystals like in my collection that it's ridiculous. So like, I'm really trying not to get too connected to any of these.
I mean, I think that makes sense too, based on everything you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and also like, since I'm like collecting other people's work, I'm like, I should like be putting mine out into the world for other people to like have or work with or whatever.
So are you like working on these skulls every day, or what's that look like?
Almost every day. I'm getting older, discovering all the shit that I did when I was younger is coming back to fuck me up a little bit.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, see, when you're a young man, and you drink a lot of beers and then fall down staircases, and do a lot of screen printing on your own and like on the clock for somebody else. So there's a lot of wear and tear there. And then art handling also has some of that wear and tear on the body. And I'm just like, I like laugh at myself now, because when I was in my 20s, like the people who taught me screen printing, I would give them a hard time because they were in their 40s and like their bodies were, in pain or whatever. Right. And I'd just be like, you fucking old person. And now it's karma coming back to get me, I guess.
So you try to carve these skulls daily, but sometimes it's painful.
Yeah. My back hurts a lot from it. Like, that's why I'm looking at other equipment to do it with.
Would you want to get to a place where, like, I'm looking at these skulls from this other dude, D'Souza, and they're pretty expensive.
Oh yeah.
But would you be cautious about having that be your main source of income, the skulls?
No, I'd be fine with it.
Like you're ready, once you're mentally ready, I think
Yeah.
the monetization or commodification doesn't usually kind of affect the way you make the work.
Yeah. I think that there's like, I don't know, it is like very stream of conscious carving, I guess. Like, I know I'm going into it to make a skull, right? Sometimes I'll draw some stuff on there, like teeth are especially helpful to draw because I like them to be spaced somewhat properly.
Mm-hmm.
But it is like also just like going in and kind of like sitting and looking at the rock to find like where to make cuts to turn it into what I want it to be.
I assume you like the kind of variability of each rock and crystal, like it kind of talks back.
Yeah, definitely. And like I like one time went to a Japanese wood carving, like almost like whittling wood carving workshop this guy was teaching, and he was pretty much just like, yeah, listen to the piece of wood and it'll show you what to do. And all of them, like everybody's stuff basically came out like pretty soft and round, but they were all very different. And I think I kind of approached the like skull carving with the rocks in a similar way of listening to the rock and like finding the shapes. Some of them are super obvious, and like some of them I'll have a rock sitting around for like a couple weeks, and then just one day I'm like, oh, this is cut right there, and then the eyes go over here.
Yeah, it's very different than sitting down to a piece of paper that's the same every time.
Right. Yeah.
Which is like pure. I wouldn't say it's pure psychology emptying out into the page, but it's a more one direction activity of making. Like I've been doing more woodworking as you mentioned there, and it's like it requires you to acknowledge the character of the medium, where I don't think printmaking or drawing is quite the same, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think printmaking is like very almost production oriented. I mean, like having multiples is the idea there. And then like I think the drawing's a funny one because I still like sit down with a pen and paper or like pencil or whatever, and we'll like do some drawing and stuff like that, but it's just not like the focus. But it can be such a like, I guess like, yeah, the mind dumping out onto the page. And like, it's funny because I've always looked at drawing as like building up like a world that you're like have control over to some degree. And I feel like the process of carving, especially like these rocks into skulls, is like more freeing it from whatever it's trapped in, sort of.
Right. Process of discovery rather than creation.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You're finding it inside of the stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think drawing feels that way often.
No, I think it's funny to me because like sometimes drawing is so fucking good and like you know exactly what you're doing, and then other times it feels like, I don't know, you have hams for hands.
Yeah. Yeah, drawing is beautiful. I've come to view it much more as a process of thinking, like a visualized
Yeah.
process of thinking in the service of other things, um, as opposed to an end to itself. But I
Yeah.
mean, I forget when I don't draw for a bit, like, oh, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a funny feeling.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. There's like sometimes I'll sit down and draw something and be like, holy shit, I didn't know I could do that.
Right.
And it's like, of course I could do that, but like, I didn't think I had this other like mark making ability in me sometimes.
Yeah, it's a great thing to come back to.
Yeah.
Are you going to carve stones today?
I did a little bit before we got on the phone, and I may go back and do more. I also may just like get on the foam roller and roll my back out.
Oh, so it's like that.
Yeah, I like right now my thumb tip in my left hand is, I don't know, it's kind of numb. Like I've been going to see this massage therapist that's like super helpful with that problem.
Can you Reiki a back?
Yeah, I mean, I should self Reiki all the time, and I don't. But
You can self Reiki?
yeah,
That's not against the rules?
no.
Is it as effective as another person Reikiing you?
I don't think so, because I think the fact that you're like sitting there and like putting your hands in the positions and stuff you don't get is like relaxed, and like I feel the effects more when somebody else does it for me. But yeah, I should do it, because like when I was learning, I did like one of the requirements of our teacher was like do like an hour for yourself every day, and then like write down the stuff that you like that comes up for you while you're doing it. And I think that like I like never fucking wrote shit down at all when I like before, and I don't do it regularly now, but like when you do it, it is such a good like discovery of self and like of what's going on with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think like a lot of like doing Reiki on yourself is almost like meditation. The difference being that you're like basically like when someone is running Reiki, they're like a conduit for the energy to come through.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't like, you don't get like exhausted afterwards, which is nice. You're just kind of letting it work through you. And I guess it knows where to go. Like it knows where it's needed. You do all the different positions, but it finds its way to where like healing needs to happen.
So can people contact you for remote Reiki?
Yeah. Through Instagram at this time.
Right.
But yeah, I have a few people that are like pretty steady clients, and I haven't focused on the animal aspect of it as much lately, but like I had a very good run of working with animals, and I probably should pursue that a little more. I think I just want to carve all the time instead of anything else.
Oh, that's cool. So that's the main thing you're thinking about and doing.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
carving.
I think pretty much, yeah.
Oh, right on. So how many skulls do you think you go through a month? Not to get too industrial.
I think it depends on what size I'm doing. Because I've done some like smaller, probably like 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch kind of size. Or, probably variations on that dimension, but close. And I've done like 2 or 3 of those in a day. but it also really depends on what material I'm cutting.
Like the softness.
Yeah, the softness or hardness, and then like also a lot of minerals have different kinds of like fracture or cleavage that they'll do. Like, just it's basically like the shapes that make up the structure of the rock. But like calcite will break off into like 3-dimensional rhombus shapes pretty much. And like you see that when like you just see a rock out in the world. I think probably the more you're into rocks, the more you think about it too.
Do you ever give up on a skull? Like if it breaks in a certain way? Or
yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Like they're irredeemable skulls out there.
Yeah.
Skull graveyard.
Oh yeah, there's not. I really try not to give up, but like if I'm cutting something and the bottom jaw breaks off, like, and it needs to have a bottom jaw, it's just shit out of luck. And I've had stuff like just kind of like fracturing in my hands, but it's like it's not that common, but it's like super frustrating when it happens. And like I came in like the other day after having like a tough time of getting anything carved satisfactorily, and I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm in a fucking rotten mood, and I tried to carve, and it's not a good idea because everything I touched was just like, no, you're not doing a good job today, and you don't need to do this.
Did that manifest as like disintegrating skulls, or just you weren't hitting the mark, like aesthetically?
A little of both.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, I know it's like bi-directional. It's not like because you honor the material, you give up on your will and your desire to have a certain outcome, but it's participating back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. And I think failure is important too.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just it's just two pistons going back and forth, yeah.
I mean, I'll also get like frustrated when I'm not cutting like the way or like I'm not getting the result that I want, and then I'll just be like, well, I'm giving up on this because it's not coming out, and I'm just too frustrated to deal with it. And I usually try and cut those down into smaller stuff, just to not like waste the material if I can.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm like, I have a bucket or like a tray underneath where I carve that collects the water because you have to cool the blade while you're cutting. And it also gets all the sediment from like all the cutting and stuff that breaks off. And I don't know what to do with it, but I want to see if I can like get it to be a stable thing that I can like then polish.
Yeah, I think that can be seen in your videos, right? That's like where all that. Yeah, I see that there. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that would be real, like, rad. There's a couple of things that are man-made crystals, sort of. One's called Fordite, and it's built up layers of automotive paint.
Oh.
That you can like, you can cut that and you'll have different colors on different levels.
Yeah, I know about that from this documentary called Man versus Ford about New Jersey, in which Ford was just dumping automotive paint, and it was like these crate, and kids would like eat it and shit.
Yeah,
and it was this amazing, it's like layering. That'd be super cool to see.
Yeah, there's that, and then from the surfboard industry, there's stuff called surfite that is like the fiberglass resin, like off the floor or whatever, where it's dripped off of stuff and built up in layers. Like people will cut that into jewelry and stuff.
Fascinating.
It's pretty funny to me. Like the man-made gyms are a lot of entertainment.
You know, it reminds me. I watched this video of like compressed flip flops that are carved into these crazy sculptures, and I think somewhere in Africa. And there's just so many flip flops thrown out on the beach that they just collect them and like compress them into this material that they can quickly and easily cut.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out because that's an interesting angle too, like what you're mentioning, the supernatural crystal angle, and then the kind of I think recycling can often be lame like aesthetically, but that actually sounds visually really cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think trying to like figure out like what you can do with the leftovers or whatever is like an important thing to do.
Oh, totally. I just admit that like woodworking, when it's just like found shit, can often kind of have this feel, this look that it's really hard to pull off in a good way, but it's certainly a noble endeavor, no doubt.
There was like, I think this teacher only taught 3D design at the college that I went to in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And he did a lot of like really nice hardwood woodworking, and then would have these installations where he had like kept all the sawdust separate and had it by like the different kind of wood that he was using, and make almost like topographical maps of like mountain ranges and stuff out of different colors of sawdust. Just like on the floor in the gallery. It's rad. It was rad. I was always into that because I was just like, oh, you're totally just putting trash out. That's great.
Oh yeah. All right, I got to run because I got to screen a film. But
right on.
Very good talking to you. I'm glad to hear you're in a good place.
Yeah, man. Thank you. You too.
All right, man.
All right. Super good talking to you, man. Later.
Yeah. Peace. Music by Dory Vivarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have the musician Charlie Looker. Look out.
Bill, 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 Bill. Bill McRight. Bill, 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 Bill.